Hi there. Welcome to Can I Make It, a series where I spend my valuable time where I could be at school learning, out in the forest trying to live like a caveman. Not exactly, but welcome. In today's episode, we're going to be taking a look at house building, and we're going to be watching me struggle with basic architectural concepts and attempt to make my own house from scratch. I made a video about 6 months back detailing the start of this project. I spent a couple of weeks digging a hole with my little digging stick, a branch that I'd been able to split with a couple of flint rocks and turn into a sort of shovel. Luckily, the ground I'd decided to put my house on is about 90% this weird reddish clay stuff, so it wasn't too hard to get started. With a couple of weeks and a few good hours of unpaid work from my family and friends, I was able to get a decent sized hole dug. They might or might not have used the digging stick as well. Unfortunately, however, I wasn't even finished when I found our first problem. It's a little something I like to call rain, and well, it causes problems. See, for those who don't know, when it rains, water comes pouring down from the sky and it can fill up holes with that water. My hole was full. That's what. Never mind. Here you can see a wild, post-quarantine, unmuscly, skinny little boy spending his day out in the summer sun talking about his primitive swimming pool. I could have, taken a bath in this before. Nice. After going and getting a badly needed haircut, the water level of the hole had dropped enough for me to start scraping drier dirt off the walls and into the water. I was slowly turning it into a thick mud paste that I could sort of grab and chuck out of the hole. Listen to the beautiful smack of the mud I threw as it hits the ground off camera. Well, that wasn't as satisfying as I thought it would be, but it was okay. It was okay. After a few more weeks of digging, I'm a slow digger, I actually had a pretty nice hole that I could sit in. Here you can see me sitting in it. It's actually quite large and it was pleasant to sit in and enjoy. Please don't laugh. I ended up deciding to make ridiculously small mud bricks from the huge pile of leftover dirt I'd just taken out of the ground. By smoothing the wall after a while with softer mud, I was proud of my accomplishments. This took me an entire day to build. I don't know how those primitive dudes build entire swimming pools in hours. After another day though, my wall wasn't looking so wimpy. I started to slide a bunch of the dirt from the pile over to the back of the wall to create a sort of thick slope. I hoped it'd give much more structural support to the wall than just a few bricks, and it did. This wall is one of the only parts of the original build that survived to the end. In fact, it was so good that I wish I'd now done it on the other side as well. Whoops. I was ready to start on the roof. I started dragging random branches out of the forest, breaking them to the correct length, and laying them across the hole to become the main beams. You can tell I was really thinking it through when I nearly used a less than 2-inch stick as my primary support for the entire structure. Oh god, I actually did use it as the primary support beam. What was I thinking? After I got my sanity back, I finished laying out the main beams and started laying more on top of them, this time horizontally across the whole roof. And then I had the genius idea to use leaves as the roof thatching material. Hear me out. I thought that by layering them thick enough, I would be able to have the majority of the water from things like rain run down the slope of the roof before dripping down into the actual house. I was wrong, and I quickly changed this plan, especially after the leaves dried up and shriveled. It looked cool from the inside, though. I also found a bunch of bark and sticks and laid them across the gap that was remaining. But then, I had a better idea. One that was better than the leaves. Well, I mean, anything was better than the leaves, but you know what I mean. I started thinking about transporting water from the nearby pond to my project, but that was out of the question because I haven't made buckets or bowls in this series yet. We will in the future. I found a nice patch full of mud though, and through a horrible process of digging, turning my shirt into a bowl, and lots of walking, I was able to bring back enough mud to cover the roof. I'm not going to relive the trauma of showing that video, but you know how you used to hold things like acorns or marbles in your shirt when you were little? That's how I transported the mud. It was muddy. I was, however, smart enough to combine the wet mud with the drier soil from the outside of my hole to get twice as much, slightly less wet mud. From there I started to make shingles, but without a way to fire them I had to wait for them to dry, and after another few days I realized it wasn't going to work. They looked so ugly, and they wouldn't even keep out water. So I resorted to the new tactic of adding way more sticks to the roof and covering them with mud from the pond. This was actually the first thing that really worked, and I was pretty happy. It took quite a while to get this done, but I got there in the end. There's nothing better to watch than a shirtless, stick-hunting boy to lift your spirits. I kept making enormous progress every day. I was getting really excited. But I will say that there's a reason this house in the thumbnail looks nothing like the one I'm building right now. We'll get to that in a minute, but for now, enjoy a full 30 seconds of me seductively smearing mud onto the roof of the hut. Look at that. There's not much else we can do. We gotta wait for this to dry. That was only 24 seconds, so subscribe if you want more. It really helps out the channel, and it's always satisfying to click big red buttons. At least, I think so. Unless it's the fire alarm. And that was still sort of fun to press, just not afterwards. Regardless, I covered the top with more dirt and was ready to spend the night to test it out, when something unfortunate happened. See, sadly for me, I have to share this field in this forest with my dreaded nemesis, cow. It's all fine and dandy building houses out of mud, but when a big beefy animal comes and gets curious about this new thing in their field, bad things can happen to the new thing in the field. It was only a few days before I was going to spend the night when I found that the whole back half of the roof had collapsed. Collapsed completely. And there were hoof prints all around. I think we know who the culprit is. So I spent a few more weeks building a fence, and I was kind of sad. I didn't film much until the fence was done, but I essentially grabbed a bunch of small privets, hammered them into the ground around my shelter, and ended up weaving longer, smaller privets around them to eventually create a pretty strong fence. Then I started clearing the empty pieces of roof out, trying to see what I could salvage. I realized it was going to be pretty difficult to restore the roof, and I was ready to switch up my build plan. If it fell once, it could very well fall again, and I didn't want that to happen. So I had some fun, and I did a little science experiment to prove that it takes less than a minute to destroy something that takes forever to build. That's the same with life. If a man spends his life building bridges and picks his nose once, he'll forever be known as nose picker instead of bridge builder. I think the original quote was something slightly different, but I'm trying to keep this channel PG. What I'm trying to say is that it's super easy to pick it's easier to destroy things than it is to build them. And it actually ended up okay. After letting the whole thing sit for a week while I recollected my thoughts and tried to cope with my sudden homelessness, I returned. And that's when I saw that my destroyed home had become something else's new home. After getting bit a few times, it became apparent that it wasn't poisonous, so that's the story of how our family got a new pet. His name is Ouchie. I spent a few weeks gathering big logs. On rainy days, dead trees are actually surprisingly easy to uproot, break, and even partially debark with a rock. So I dug a hole and stuck the first Y-post in. There's just something about a dead cedar tree that really gives life to the whole house. Right here, I used another stick to compact the soil in the hole I stuck it in. It ended up being pretty sturdy. Here you can see me digging the hole for the second post with my trusty digging stick. Here you can see me compacting the dirt around the second post with my trusty digging stick. And here you can see me swinging from the now completed main support beam with my trusty hanging arms while nodding vigorously with my trusty nodding head. Secondary beams went up in a similar fashion. This took quite a while, but it was super important that the main beams would hold the roof strong enough to support a fully grown cow, also known as never mind. Weaving longer privets through the main support beams took about an hour of work for each side. An even longer time when you factor in the fact that you're constantly getting distracted by the enticing pull of the main support beam's pull-up capacity. The nice thing about the privets though is that they allowed me to continue to add smaller sticks now to the rest of the roof. I gotta say, the house looked really good until I added these. It still looks cool, just, well, significantly less cool. All I had to do then was wait for it to rain. And rain it did. Unfortunately though, it's kinda hard to film when it's raining, so I only have one clip of me actually mixing the mud, and this is it. This time I also learned from my previous mistakes, so I decided to add a binder to the mud I created for the roof. I grabbed a bunch of grass from the grassland right next to the shelter and mixed that in with my feet every rainy day I could. I was only able to work when the soil around was wet enough to mix though, so it ended up taking quite a while to get the roof fully covered in mud. But I got it in the end, and it was pretty nice. I'll show a 60-second montage of the whole process. Sweet! My shelter was actually starting to look like a hut, except for this problem. See, when it rains, water comes down. Oh wait, I've already said that joke. We had this same problem as before, and it's because of the same reason, I think. We had no walls. Well, we had some walls, but there were still some walls missing. So I decided to bring back a bunch of rocks that were far too heavy for me to carry without getting hurt over to the hut. It was time to stack them all up on top of each other to create one of the last two walls I had to build. What started out as a wimpy pile of rocks grew over time and became a towering wall that would really hurt if it fell on you while you were sleeping in the hut. You get 40 seconds of me building it. There's no sound for this part because of, I don't want to get a copyright strike, and I was playing music, so we're just going to go do-do-do-do-do and give you our own music. Oh yeah, here's where I saw a spider. That spider's what I saw on the wall, and I kind of freaked out. Do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do, do-do-do-do-do-do-do. Has it been 40 seconds? I think it almost has. Do-do-do. Done. From the front, my hut was actually starting to look pretty good, but we were far from done. I spent the next 20 seconds pushing down dead cedar trees to pile up along the back wall. There was no way I was going to do rocks again for the back. Snapping of the cedars ensued, and I began laying the sticks across the back wall. This actually didn't take very long, and it made my hut start looking super epic from all angles. Now I was almost done. I just had to add a little bit of mud between all the sticks to insulate, and we were ready to make the door. And then it got super cold for a few days. I headed inside to try to make the door, but I learned that weaving big sticks together is not exactly my forte, and the door tried to choke me to death. Luckily I escaped, but we'll be making the door in a future episode instead of this one. That's a whole project on its own, I tell you. It was finally time to spend the night in the hut. It gets dark really early around this time of year, so it was going to be a long night. And I can assure you that growing up as a city kid, I have pretty much never been camping in my entire life. The moon started doing its moony things around 6 o'clock, so we ate dinner early and headed out into the already dark forest to try to get into my hut by 7 o'clock. I'll let past me do the rest of the talking. Alright, this is pretty cool. This is the first hour. It's about 8 o'clock. Smile, dude. This is about the first hour we are in here. It's about 8 o'clock right now, and we finally got things situated. We have a couple of sleeping bags, some blankets, some water, a couple of flashlights, our phones. Just the basics we need to make sure we can survive. It's actually surprisingly not cold. I'm really excited, and not, even without the blankets, like, we wouldn't need any of the blankets and we could sleep perfectly fine. I put some hay straw across the bottom to make it to sort of insulate, create an air barrier from the ground where we're sleeping, so that way we can sleep more comfortably, and that has been working really, really well. And that's pretty much making it the most comfy place to be, aside from a real bed. It's not as comfy as a real bed, but it's pretty cool. I have my pillow. What is it, like 9:30? Yeah, it's 9:37 right now, and I don't know. It seems to be kind of chilly. Like, I can see my breath. But I'm not that cold. But my brother is. He's freezing. It's really cool. It's about 9:30. We're gonna try to get some sleep, because seeing the moon makes you actually a lot more tired than just being indoors with the lights on. I'm pretty tired right now, even though I usually go to bed later. What about you, Remy? Are you tired?
I'm cold and I'm tired.
Yeah, he has pretty much all the blankets. It's cold. We have our pillows here, and we're gonna try to sleep the night a little bit. For me, the biggest thing I'm noticing is that it's not that cold for me. I'm with just a couple of blankets, I'm good. But for my brother, it's chilly. This is pretty cool, though. I have to say, it's super cool, and I'm excited. Let's try to get some sleep, and I'll give another update in a few minutes. Or hopefully not a few minutes. Hopefully in about an hour or so, or maybe a couple of hours. Whenever I wake up, we'll see. It's gonna be cool. We're gonna turn off the light and go to sleep. Being bored and uncomfortable after trying to sleep for a few hours can lead to unexpected things, like songs, for instance. Enjoy our masterpiece. Bored. I like to eat chicken when I'm bored. I like to eat chicken out of a gourd. I really hate it when I am bored. You're a chicken. No, you're a chicken. I like to eat chicken out of a gourd when I'm bored. I don't know. It's 2:52, and I just kind of woke up from like a weird short sleep thing. But it's like so uncomfortable. Like, it's not cold, but it's so uncomfortable. Like, the ground is just so uncomfortable, and my pillow is so, and I'm tired. It's like flat, and I'm tired. It is uncomfortable. Finally, I still have to wait longer, but it's getting there. Oh my god. I keep finding dirt in my sleeping bag, and it's so annoying. I don't know where it's coming from, but somehow I keep getting dirt in my sleeping bag, and it's very, very annoying. It survived the night. Look at this back wall. Looks good. How are you, Rem?
Good.
It's bright outside, isn't it?
Tired.
It's real bright outside. I'm tired too. But yeah, it worked. We survived the night. And the sun is so bright. I like it. It's cool. That was fun. I slept for a grand total of about 2 hours that night, but it was cool. There are a lot of things wrong with my hut, but you know what? I don't care. It's not perfect, but the hut is mine. It's my hut. I built it, and that makes me happy. I really hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, I plan on releasing more content like this in the future, so please consider subscribing if you want to see more soon. If you made it to the end of the video without skipping, I really, really like you. And I'm willing to bet you like this video. Or maybe not. Maybe you just watched the whole thing in disbelief that someone could, post a video this bad on YouTube. I guess I'll never know. But Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.